I saw ages ago your content used to be kind of around mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when people start the gym, they kind of get into it because they want to, sometimes it's like led through negative beliefs, like they want to prove someone else wrong, or they just want to go there for a sense of peace. But alongside that comes a bunch of mental barriers, like body dysmorphia or the fear of bulking, cutting, wherever it may be. What is your go-to advice for people who come across these mental blockades?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think it's inevitable to have them at first. I feel like you said, everyone has them. But advice. Honestly, just genuinely push through it, because once you come out the other side, your mindset almost changes to a different perspective on it. Like, despite whether, like, how strong that belief was in the beginning, if that makes sense. But yeah.
I've spoken to a couple people about changing perspectives around things. So the way that I like to describe it, so when I was younger, I used to play this game, which it would have like a blockade of messed up blocks, and it would, in the top right, it would be like, you need to find like this picture of a cat in these messed up blocks,
Right.
and you have to switch around the blocks to look at it in a different way, and then once you find the right angle, it looks like the cat.
Okay.
So how have you found, have you ever found yourself in a situation where switching a perspective on the situation in front of you without actually changing the situation has helped you push through it? If you've got an example of that.
I would say so, yes. I think especially when it comes to mental health, it's all about perspective. And the way that you perceive it is generally, because you have one angle. It's not, and when other people tell you stuff, it's like, seems crazy because they're looking at it from a different angle. But yeah, I think every single thing about mental health is just perspective. In terms of like personal experiences, trying to think. So I left year 11 because of my mental health, and I went to homeschooled, and I was like, at first that was like such a hard like change, especially because it was just after COVID. But then, so I was having like, I had an English teacher, maths and art, because that's what was the only TCs I carried on with. And then at first I found it like really isolating, but in retrospect, I think it kind of just, I guess because I was more alone, it made me focus on it in a better way. I think that was when I mainly changed my perspective as to the fact that I was able to be alone more instead of being at school. I was able to focus on the way that I was feeling and the way that like I went about things, instead of being like crowded with like other people's opinions and everything. I was more able to focus on myself, I guess.
So there was just like a sense of silence. Yeah, I understand that. So, I mean, alongside having the sort of serenity of being by yourself, again, we mentioned earlier that other people can offer you different perspectives on situations that you're in.
Yeah.
How has not being around other people in that situation stopped you from having other perspectives? Have you ever found where you've come across like a rut or blockade when you were alone?
For sure. Yeah, I think it's more just like having the courage to actually look past that. I think you can look at it from two ways, whether being alone makes you move past it quicker because you have more focused perspective on it. Wait, let me get this side. Or you can look at it like you are alone and you don't have anyone else's help. So I think it depends, and like you said, it's all about perspective. It is, and I think I fully stand by that.
I saw on your story yesterday you got a tattoo.
I did, yeah.
That says what you're not changing, you're choosing.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me about that.
So I've always followed it, to be honest. I think at first it was more like, in other words, change what you can't accept, accept what you can't change. And then in terms of like my tattoo, I felt like that was too long, so I changed it. But I think I'm very much like going back to mental health. I think for me, it was always like a question of, oh, how do I get out of this state? I can't get out of it. And then when you genuinely want to recover and get past something, is, at least for me, I think for a lot of people, I think it's purely that you need to make a change, and a lot of people think that you can't because you're just stuck. But I 100% think that it's that if you want to recover, you need to do something about it. It doesn't just happen. You actually need to like try. Does that make sense? But yeah, I just like the quote, and I was like, I need it on me. But yeah, I've got my little like thing around it, so it's not very visible.
When I saw that, I've heard like that can be chucked around for years on end, and everyone has their own little takes on it. But I feel like there's got to be. Is there personal experience behind that? That because you don't just get that tattooed on your body when there's no, I guess, personal meaning to it.
Yeah,
So I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, I suffered with self-harm for like 7 years, and it was just like this cycle of going like back and forth, with like complaining that I can't get over it, and then not doing anything about it, and not like always resulting back to it. And I get that that's part of like an addiction, but in a sense, like I said, if you don't want something to happen, you need to make action in order for that to change. And then when I actually sat down with myself and was like you need to stop, that's when it finally, like, my whole mindset's like shifted, and change actually happened. I think if you want something that bad, in order to do so, you need to like have like a sell mode with yourself and actually change it.
I mean, recently, you're right. Like recently, I've been fantasized by the idea of people who say that they believe in realistic outcomes tend to just try to hide their pessimism behind that facade. And in the UK especially, we're usually very pessimistic in the terms of just like, we don't applaud other people for achieving even like the smallest thing. Like, oh, I made my bed in the morning. Like, yeah, that's a small win.
Yeah.
Like no one else cares.
I know.
But it's a small win. And I think it's a very important thing to be optimistic.
100%.
Just have a belief that you can do things.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the main problems that people will struggle with when they are in those ruts and have those problems with their mental health. So that they don't believe that they can get themselves out of it.
And like you said, like that one small win, like making your bed every day, is like, when it becomes a habit, it's one step closer to much better things, rather than like you said, if you do it one day, the next day you might do it, and then you might miss a day, but then it becomes like a routine and a structure that you need in order to actually get out of that rut. But yeah, 100%.
So when you were in that, I guess, that state of rut, how small did you have to go down to start building up the habits to improve yourself? Because there was a story, Jordan Peterson talks about how he had one client, and the client told him to hoover his carpet in his room. The client took the hoover up to his room, but instead of even putting it in the room, he put it in the doorway of his room. and he didn't hoover the room that day. And for the next week, that hoover was still in the doorway, and he just kept walking over it and kept on with the rest of his day. So sometimes people need to go even smaller than that in their tasks to start building up something and some positive habits. How small did you have to go? Start building up some positive habits.
I would say, I'm trying to think of the smallest thing. I think even just like, I don't know how small it seems to you, but like when you get in that state of mind, it's like, as per usual, you would result back to the way that you normally cope with something. But just like, I don't know, going for a cold shower. So not something so simple as that, but it gets your like focus on something else. Or even just like breathing. Like I find breath work is like so important. It can completely like shift the whole way you like think at that time. So yeah, I guess breath work I think is the smallest thing. Like for example, especially if you're more of an anxious person, I think when you're panicking and getting in like that state, shifting your focus and actually like taking control of yourself rather than it taking control of you, completely, like literally life changing, 100%. I still do it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing meditation for a while, and one of the things that I've come across when I tell other people to do it is that they said they've tried to do it and it hasn't worked for them.
Yeah.
There's obviously lots of ways that people can go around in terms of meditation. 100%. What's the way that you went around for it to work for you?
So I had like this CBT therapy, and it was one of the exercises that my therapist was telling me was just simple box breathing. So it's, I don't know if you know, but it's going in for 4, hold it for 4, out for 4, and then hold it for 4. So if you're just going around in a cycle, like you can trace it on your hand or like follow like a door or something like that. But I think it's something so simple as shifting your focus. Even with like anger or anything, it's just that shift that you need to have in order to not result in like a bad action. But yeah, I think that's the main thing that I did.
I think meditation is the best way to go around, especially when it comes to shifting your focus, because a lot of the time when people have bad habits or even when life isn't going the way that they want it to, which is a different problem than it is, but when it's not, people resort to bad habits as a way to shift their attention from what reality actually is.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think the thing with meditation, as much as it's shifting your focus, is shifting your focus onto changing your perspective of your reality, instead of shifting your focus to something completely different as a temporary fix to the problem that you have in front of you.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah, I think
it's so important, I think.
Yeah, because it's such a simple thing, your breath, and we do it every day, but we just don't.
You don't acknowledge it. Yeah, it's crazy. Especially since I've had an Apple Watch, I'm so much more aware of my like heartbeat and my breath, because like I'll like look at my heartbeat, I'm like, oh, it's a bit too high, and then I'll like, because they have like breathing stuff on here. Like my therapist is like the breath one, so it's like something so simple, but it for me like changes so much. But yeah,
came across a quote.
Yeah,
and it was from a therapist. I forgot her name, so I'm not going to try to say it because I'll butcher it. But the past is not the past if it's unresolved.
If it's
unresolved. What does that mean to you?
Oh, I like that quote. I would say, I think if you haven't like, if we're talking about the past, like if you haven't like dived into it and actually solved it, and actually if you've got any like trauma or anything from the past, and if you haven't, I guess, resolved it, it plays a huge part in the present. I think, I guess, I don't know what the quote is either, but there's a quote about how your childhood's, what is it? the child is the father of the man. Is that it?
Child. I've not heard this one.
A child. I think it's that. And it's basically saying that the way that you were brought up and everything that you went through as a child controls the man, so you in the future. And I think that's like so true. I love that. Especially, I think I found that with unresolved trauma from the past, it affects your day-to-day life. It affects the way that you respond to situations now, and just the way that you like deal with things. I think like unsolved trauma can change your reactions like hugely. Yeah.
So when I did my episode with Joey, he actually asked me this question. I'm going to ask the question to you as well. He said, at what time in your development from child to now do you think your reactions to certain situations are developed? So like we're talking nursery, primary school, secondary school, university,
So the time that it most changed?
Where you're most developed and where you bring into how you react to situations.
That's a hard one. I would say, well, I don't know. Maybe like late secondary.
Why is that?
I think that's just the time that mainly affected the way that I was. But then all of the, I don't know how to describe this. All of my previous like traumas as such happened way before that, but I only like unraveled it and actually sat down with it when it came to secondary. So I think that's when I changed and actually developed as the most. Coming into like college, I think.
Yeah, Joey said the same.
Right?
Yeah, I said around childhood.
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of apparently there was a bunch of studies on which decides whether your child becomes social or not.
Okay.
Is if you allow them to have social interaction when between the ages of like 2 and 3, and if you don't and you miss that stage,
really,
they're actually more likely to get imprisoned if you don't give them social
oh my God.
a social interaction between those ages. It makes sense.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, but it does make sense.
It does.
Yeah, around late secondary does make a lot of sense around like sixth form.
I think especially with like the changes of like, I don't know, different schools and like even just like pressures, it brings everything up, I would say. But yeah. But have you ever listened to, I don't know how to say his name, Gabor Mate?
No.
You haven't?
No.
Oh, I'm not but mass. He's like, I think he's like 80 odd. He basically, I don't know the right word for his job, but he talks about everything like childhood traumas, addictions, and it's kind of just tells you like the science on it, but he's just got such a great way of telling it. And I've honestly listened to every single podcast that he does. I think it made me more like aware of everything as well. And I think when you're aware of your childhood and the way that you brought up and you actually question whether this affected that or etc., it makes you more like a emotionally aware person. Like I went to a stage where I'd literally like feel myself reacting a certain way. I'd be like, oh, I'm feeling quite anxious right now. Why is that? I've literally had this conversation in my head like back and forth of actually picking apart what was going on in my brain. And I think that's one of the most important like things of recovering. being able to understand what's happening in your brain and why. I think when you have no idea as to why you're feeling like it or how to resolve it, it's just like a spiral. But since I started actually becoming emotionally aware of what was happening internally and actually the science behind it, it like calmed a lot of stuff down, I would say.
Okay. What does emotional intelligence mean to you?
Ooh. That's an interesting question. I think it's so wide, but also in a simple way of explaining it, I think anyone that's in touch with themselves internally, and that can actually, I don't know how to describe it. I think just someone that is just aware. I think awareness is such like a big thing in terms of emotional intelligence. Aware of your being and aware like mentally like what's going on up there. Yeah, I can't. What do you think? I think that's a really hard question.
It's okay. I think I've got it. Being able to feel two emotions at the same time.
Okay.
So the reason Shakespeare became so popular back when he was growing as his franchise back, I can't remember the years, but whenever he was, the reason it became so popular is because the characters that he made were able to inhibit two emotions at the same time. They were able to feel angry yet relieved, or sad yet happy at the same time. And being able to inhibit those two emotions and react in a sensible way, I think that describes emotional intelligence to me.
Fair enough. I like that. I think balance is a lot of it, and being able to balance, I guess like you said, more than one thing. I think if I was to look at someone, if I was to try and describe someone that wasn't emotionally intelligent, is that what? Yeah.
So some needs.
I think it would just be being too like overwhelmed just by one thing and not being able to like split it all up. Someone that kind of gets overwhelmed by the minor things. So I think someone that is emotionally intelligent is more someone that's able to cope with a lot of things going on at once and being aware of that.
Well, yeah, I think the thing is there's a lot of ways to go around it, right? So you could argue someone who's emotionally intelligent is someone who's able to express their emotions.
Yeah.
Like actively able to do it and accurately.
Yeah.
But then no one wants to have a wet puddle all the time where you're always going to other people saying, this is the problem I have, and then this is this, and this is, and not doing anything about it. It is great to being able to express your emotions and how you feel, but if you do nothing about them,
then it's not being aware.
Then it's not. I guess, would you still call that emotional intelligence if they're able to accurately
Not really
express their emotions?
I would say it's more emotional, or just without this intelligence. I think it's more, there's a difference between being sensitive and emotional intelligence. If you haven't got a way to like cope with it and actually understand it, then I would definitely not put it as emotional intelligence.
Yeah, Sebum talks about how he's able to share his concerns about when he was preparing for the Olympia with his wife. But it would be okay for him to be a burden to her as long as that he figures out how to solve the problem, he becomes strong in other areas. But if he were to just complain to her saying that he wasn't ready for this and do nothing about it, then that's when it becomes a problem. So I guess emotional intelligence is being able to be a burden and express your emotions to the people who care about you, but also being strong in those areas and being able to show that, you know, I express these concerns, but I'm still going to push through it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I like that.
All right. So, DFYNE athlete now. Again, congratulations for that.
Thanks.
So, Alex Hormozi has this frame where he says, you once wanted a life that you have. If you aren't happy with the life that you have, you won't be happy with the one that you want but don't have. So, how have things changed since you became a DFYNE athlete compared to the time when you were, I'm guessing you were craving to be one? Not craving, I guess. You wanted to be one.
Yeah. I think 100%. I don't know the quote either, but about like gratitude. At one point it's like a dream, and it's still a dream, but it's more of the normality of it now that you get used to it and you don't actually realize how far you've come. I think we were speaking about this before, that like when you get used to something, I was listening, who was I listening to? I want to say Huberman.
Yeah, even.
I think so. He was saying something so simple as like, when you try new food, it's great and you love it when that first bite goes in. By the end of the meal, you're already used to it. And I think actually being able to have gratitude and remember like how much you've achieved is such an important thing, because I think it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, that happened, but then forget that one day it was like a huge dream. Like I used to, I guess, dream of it to be a DFYNE athlete. And one thing that I've made it so important not to do is get used to it and actually remember how far I've come. But yeah, I think let me think. I don't know. I think this gratitude as a whole is such an important thing to remember, and I feel like I don't let much change because I don't want that to happen. I think just preaching gratitude in the right areas, especially like becoming a DFYNE athlete, is such an important thing, because otherwise, and I've seen it happen to other girls, it becomes the normal. And I hate that because it's such like a luxury to have, I guess. Yeah.
What's been your experience of gratitude? And
My experience?
whether there's been a turning point where you weren't so grateful for things before and now you are?
Ooh. Let me think about that.
Take it there.
Something that I wasn't grateful for.
As in, what have been your experiences with gratitude, first of all? Like where there've been times where, you know, you caught yourself and decided to be grateful for the position you're in. And was there a turning point where you were not previously grateful for the things that you had and now you are?
I don't know how you would see this, but like, so when I moved to Egypt, like the summer of 2023, I think, yeah. And something so small, but like obviously being out there and not being able to like see my mum or anything. I remember, I think I took a photo of myself, like, and I had to write down what I was feeling because it was such like a vivid thing in my head. I remember sitting in my bed and I was like, I hate the fact that I wasn't so as grateful as I should have been when I was at home with my mum, because I felt like she does everything for me. She's great. But I feel like I took it for granted. And I think because when I was like not in a great state mentally, she would do like the most and more for me to get me out of that. And I, like most people, they shut people down when they're mentally not there. And I think now that I've come out of that state and I see how much she did for me, I took that for granted. And now I'm much more grateful. But like what I'm trying to say is that when I was in Egypt and I was away from her, and how much, looking back at what she did for me, I was like, it made me so upset. I was like, oh my God, I literally took that for granted. So that's when I think I practiced gratitude most, being away from the normal and actually realizing what I had back at home. And then when she came out to see me, I was like, best time ever. But yeah, that was like a massive shift. I like a good few days, I was like, this felt crazy. It was weird.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to gratitude, I mean, it can be in significant moments like that, or it can even be in the most minuscule things. Like, for example, a couple months ago, I came across like a real bad throat infection, to the point where like anytime I were to swallow, I had to brace myself. Like,
My God.
I couldn't eat, drink water, sleep on my side because the saliva would go down and I have to swallow it, and I couldn't sleep. And after it was gone, it was kind of like the first day, like, yes, I'm glad it's not there anymore. Second day, it was like, yeah, I'm pretty happy. Third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, week goes by, and then I'm just like, it's normal.
It's normal, yeah.
And I guess it's okay to not every day be like, oh, I'm glad I'm not ill, but to give yourself some time, like maybe like once a week, 60 seconds, to be like, you know, I'm glad I don't have cancer or some shit like that.
No,
it's like, I'm glad I don't have that throat infection right now. It would be terrible. And even in the tiniest things, Chris Williamson's done this thing where he's put a post-it note up in a mirror in his bathroom which says, what went well today?
Nice.
So every time he walks in and he sees that, it reminds him like, okay, I'll give myself 60 seconds, like, what actually went well today? It might not be anything massive, but it's just something small to be like, yeah, today this went okay.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think without gratitude, it's just depressing. I think I've been practicing it more recently, like, and I do think I constantly remind myself to be grateful, especially like you said, in the small things, like something so small about having like a hot shower, like it becomes the normal. And I also think about that a lot, not making the luxuries normal, like even just working out, and being able to actually move, and like even being able to like hold myself up. Like there was a time where I like would faint all the time, but now I can actually like walk. Do you know? And I hate if I would hate if I ever made that like a normal thing to me.
Well, when I did my this is very interesting, so I wanna hear your thought on this. So again, with my episode with Joey, he talked about gratitude. He talked a lot about self-love and where it was. And he says he doesn't like the frame that you should be grateful for things you have because people in X, Y, Z country don't have that.
Okay.
And he says that because it kind of dismisses the things that you did to put yourself in the position that you are now.
I do agree.
What do you think of that?
I would agree to a certain extent. I think it becomes too, I don't think restrictive is the right word. It controls a lot if you think of it from like that, because then everything that we do, everything that we have you should be grateful for, but it's hard in a normal day to practice that and preach that. But yeah, I would say I agree with him, because I think as a normal person it's hard to actually be that aware and grateful 24 hours of the day. But then to an extent I don't, because it's like having like a shelter, having like a bed, food, everything. And I think the more that you practice gratitude, it becomes more easy to remember that. But yeah, I would say 50-50 split on that, to be honest.
Yeah, I had to push back on what Joey said, and also just to like put a line in that comment to make it a bit more make sense. I had a conversation with my friend Bo, and I didn't really understand what Joey meant by that at first. But after the conversation, we found out that what he was saying is that, so you being grateful for the things that you have because other people don't have it, that's gratitude. But he thinks it's not dismissing being grateful for yourself, it's dismissing the proudness, or like the pride that you have for the things that you do. So like the example was, you got that camera, so you got the money to get that camera, so you should be proud of yourself that you did those things to get the camera. Or if someone gifted you that camera, you should be proud that you made it aware to them that you deserve that camera.
Yeah.
Which is completely different to gratitude, which is, I'm grateful that I have these things because other people might not have it. So there's a distinction between the two.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people want to start posting, like the social media jobs tend to be like the most desired for kids in primary schools. Like when they say what they want to do nowadays, it's like, I want to be an influencer, right?
Yeah.
Or a YouTuber. But most of the time they don't know the other side of it. So people want the view, but they don't want the climb. So what do you wish more people knew about the difficulties of the climb of becoming an influencer?
I would say, to be honest, I don't know if it really affects me, but I know that it affects so many people. I mean, that I have been affected by it, but I think something that you enjoy so much, when it's overworked, when it's become something that you have to do, it's the enjoyment just sucked out of it. Like, in a sense of social media, I don't think I've really felt that yet, but there's been other aspects of my life where that's happened, and I know other girls especially that it becomes more of a have to than a want to. I think, especially if you've got like a bigger audience, I think you can almost be depended on, and I guess the younger generation don't really know that. It depends on what type of content you make, but even when it's about fitness, you're expected to know everything, and also people expect, I don't know if this is a girl thing, but people expect to be like you because of the stuff that you put out there. Like there'll be,
Right.
I think it's quite hard when you have girls that are like, oh, well, I'm doing this, I'm eating this, but I still don't, like, I'm following your stuff, but I still don't look like that or I see any like results. And it's, people don't understand that it's more than that. It's more like, especially the beginners, which is, I was like that at first, but there's like this misconception that if you do the same thing, eat the same, sleep the same, train the same, everything, you're going to look like that person. And I think it's quite like damaging, because then depends on how you react to it, but then you're like, oh well, I haven't provided enough, like I need to do more. And then it's like this constant cycle that people aren't pleased with it, but you feel like you need to do more even though it's not down to you, the genetics and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree, and it's shown a lot through just the internet, where everyone will say to you, like, this is how you do this, or this is how you do that. At the end of the day, it's just not right. But the thing is, that's the only thing that sells, I guess. It's the only thing that gets people interested. Is that if I were to tell you exactly how to do something to get these exact results, and you'd be like, damn, okay, I can do this and then get that. But at the end of the day, it's just not true, because everyone has different developmental stages. Everyone has different genetics and different ways they go about things, different stress, different hormones.
And most people don't realize it, which is like the most harmful part. Like, I think I've seen it the most in girl influencers, that they promote this like way where it's like, oh, do this and it will take 4 inches off your waist, or like just the most dumb things that to someone that's a beginner, that will believe them. And it generally like infuriates me. Like, it will be like, oh, do this to these exercises will tone up your muscles, as if there's different exercises that tone and build muscle. And it's like this warped like image in the fitness industry that it's complicated when it's really not. People think that to, I don't know, tone up, you just need to do cardio, which in fact they'll look at, and I know girls that do this, that you'll look at an influencer and be like, oh, I want to look like them, fair enough, and then they do the exact opposite, and it's like, oh well, I need to lose body fat first, okay, but you don't understand that they're literally jacked, and just it's just like this. And I wish it was taught more, because it's not. But it's just like this whole misconception that is portrayed, I guess, because, for example, I think you kind of said it, that if you tell the truth in terms of like, I don't know, do this and this will happen. For some people, I guess they see it as, oh, people won't come back after that. But whereas if they say it in like stages or just small little things that might help people, they'll be like, oh, I want more, and they'll feed on it, and then it will be like this cycle. But realistically, it doesn't really help.
I mean, no one wants to, buy the £10,000 program that says, if you do this thing, you might get the right results. Or like,
Yeah.
if Jesus came down and he said, this water might turn into wine, but it might not. It's like, do you think anyone would have followed him? Or do you think people would be happy buying that £10,000 course knowing that the results that they want wouldn't happen?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it sells. And the blame's still on the people who do this, because it worked for them, but then it's also due to, what's the word? Asymmetric information within just the social media platform, where it's just people don't know what they're getting themselves into. So
100%. And it's like, I think I already said, but I think it's so damaging. Like, and you see, oh, there's this one thing going on at the moment, or I think going on for a while, but the weighted straps, and people, like girls, go and walk with the weighted strap around their hands because it loses weight apparently. And it's just like these like things that are just fed into like social media, and people actually believe it, and it's so confusing to me, because realistically, if you want to lose body fat, being a deficit and using cardio, in simple terms, is really that simple. But yeah, I think it's pretty harmful if it's not done the right way.
yeah, what does the right way look like to you?
just honesty. Like, well, there'll be like, I think a lot of people nowadays look at someone's transformation, and maybe one girl will say, oh, this took me 6 months. If you do this and this, you get this result. Whereas if they were honest, you'd more say, I looked like this before, but I had good, I don't know, did running beforehand. I have pretty good genetics. I did this, and because I had that, I got this, rather than like being so vague with it. And just like, I think the right way to do it is just being factual rather than like almost sloppy with it. Like if you just give the facts of like what you need to do, what you need to eat, or roughly, not exactly, so then it suits a wider variety of people as well. It's not just like narrowed it down to a small group. If you just are factual and share honesty with your followers, then
I was going to say, I agree with everything that you said, that I need a bit more honesty. And I think the social media platforms have been kind of dialed in a way, as in the people who are really popular, like apparently popularity comes alongside with knowledge, which isn't true.
yeah, no.
Because people will follow the people who are really popular thinking that they're, as we said, they're going to get a certain result. But the right way that social media, I think, should be used is like, I did this thing and this is what I got. Doesn't mean that you're going to get it. It's just, this is what I eat in a day. This is not what you should eat in a day. This is how I train, not how you should.
Yeah, even like inevitably, when someone has a bigger following in the fitness industry, more people are likely to trust them. Doesn't mean they know any more. It doesn't mean that they have some secret hack. Doesn't mean that they will get better results. It's just that's what's the situation is. But there might be someone with 200 followers and they know 10 times more than them. I think that's where it's so like warped, because obviously everyone, when they're trying to get into fitness, they go to the bigger people that know more, when really they might not.
Well, the frame matters. So there could be someone with a small business saying, I have the best investing advice, and this is my investment advice, and look what happens. Like it's even better than the CEO of Gymshark's investing advice, or like, this is my business advice, and it will maybe it will make you a bigger business than Gymshark. But if Ben Francis were to say something, people are going to listen to him because the frame matters. He built Gymshark, the small business didn't. So at the end of the day, the frame does matter.
Yeah.
But I think you're right in that I think people need to understand that someone who's popular on social media, they're not popular on social media because they got everyone the results that they wanted. They're popular because they know how to play the game.
Yeah.
And if that becomes like normal information that everyone knew, I think there would be a completely different way everyone goes about social media. So I do agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, because I think I don't know if you've seen it, but there was like this girl that came out recently that has a big following, and obviously people looked up to her, probably followed her routines or whatever. And then it turns out she got surgery. So it's just, I know, it's hard. Like, it's why I just think I don't get why he wouldn't be honest. If anything, it's better for your brand anyway.
I think I can kind of pinpoint on a reason why everyone looks up to these kind of people, because say, for example, Elon Musk did something, right? And it worked for him. And then you try it and it doesn't work. The blame goes onto Elon now. It doesn't go onto you, because it failed. The failure doesn't fall onto you. It falls onto the person that you copied. So if you were to follow someone else's program online and be like, they told me to do these exercises, but I didn't get any results. Yeah, that's not my fault. It's their fault. So the failures don't fall onto you. And I think that's why some people are so scared to, just I don't care about what these guys are saying. Like, let me try something. Even though it might get you better results, if it doesn't work the first time round, that failure is now on you. It's your fault now.
I think that's linking back to like what I was, when you said, what would you tell younger people that want to be in the eye of social media, how you are depended on, and if you give out this information, it doesn't work for someone, they're blaming you. And I think that's so, especially in fitness, I think I already said, but it's such a big part of it, and people expect these crazy results that, but you may be like one in, I don't know, a million genetics wise. So it's hard.
There's this term called Herostratic Fame.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay, brilliant. So Herostratus, he burnt down the temple of Artemis simply to be remembered. Okay? He was a Greek god back then, and he did it just so everyone would remember his name. And now we've got nuisance influencers who will go around harassing people, committing crimes, just so they can be popular. Where have you seen this online, and what do you think of that kind of movement where people are trying to be popular simply by doing delinquent activities?
This whole concept of like rage bait, like having like the most outrageous statement as the opening line, and it's brings them views, obviously creates a bad brand. But in terms of who I've seen it in,
Because as in, like, what do you think of the movement itself?
I think if you're looking at it from a business point, great. Like, it's, if that's all you care about, I guess I can't really judge you on that. But like, in terms of like as a person, yeah, that's crazy. Like, I think it's one of the most detrimental things you can do. But if you're talking about rage bait, like, in just to get like, I don't know, few views, and what that might not give you any long-term effects. But I think it's quite common, like, even just such a small thing, and a lot of influencers do it. They might just add in that little bit, which might like create a few comments, and it just spirals. Or on the other hand, you have creators that just do it like all the time, just for views.
The way I looked at it was the kind of audience you were building.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
say you go around the side like, okay, I'm gonna rage bait everyone and do all this stupid shit to try to build an audience. You're kind of building an audience that you're eventually going to hate. Because say you come around to the point where, like, you know, I should stop doing these things.
Yeah.
So there's two things that interconnect into this. So the thing that connects into it is the perils of audience capture.
Right.
So when your audience starts growing and you get more invested inside of the social media space, people will congratulate you for certain things and they'll pull down certain things. So in terms of the people who are making rage bait stuff, their audience will congratulate that. They'll give them positive reinforcement, like, oh, this is what we want to see.
Yeah.
Versus if they even decide, like, you know, let me change my content into something a bit more, you know, normal or
just honest.
Yeah, honest, informative. The audience is gonna be like, we don't want to see this. And it keeps people stuck in this zone where it's like, I can't even improve. I have to stay here or else I lose everything.
Yeah. So 100%. I think
yeah, that's the way you should look at it.
Yeah, I think I can't remember the girl who it was, but there was this girl that was a fitness influencer. At least I followed her when she was a fitness influencer. And obviously when you change out of that and you adapt your content to what you now enjoy, which is fair enough, you lose the previous followers. Like, if you follow someone, you're following them for the content, for the maybe information they give you, and just the overall like vibe. But as soon as they change, whether it's good or bad, you just might not be interested in it. And especially if you're from a bad, like rage bait type of thing, there's no way that people that are going to be loyal, honest followers are going to stay with you. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like you said, it's if you change your perspective on what you want to make, you're basically bro. Like you've just got to almost start from scratch.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's a La Rochefort quote that says, "No one should be praised for being good if they don't have the ability to be bad," which is similar to Joe Hudson saying, "If I can't trust your no, I can't trust your yes." What's your take on that? Like, oh no, it's that.
My take on that, I think all of us have good and bad, and I think that as a normal human being, you make mistakes, and I think in that quote, it's more like seeing it as if you're only seeing the good part, then you see nothing remotely off, bad, or like a normal human being, how we fluctuate. Why, like, I wouldn't trust someone if, not necessarily trust, but I wouldn't lean towards that person if they haven't got any flexibility in their emotions. I think, I think to seem more authentic, you need to have a whole like range of good and bad. I mean, like we all do, but if you're only seeing one side of that, whether it's the good or the bad, mainly the good, then I guess it's not very, at least for me, I wouldn't feel like I'm getting the whole picture. It almost seems like you're like if you're talking about a relationship, I think you're only seeing the good parts rather than you don't see what else is happening behind scenes. So I think it's more like you need to see the whole picture of someone before making a judgment, because to be honest, I don't see how you can know someone properly without seeing good and bad. I would say.
Yeah, I think I understand your perspective.
Yeah.
I think this leans towards more the fact that I think the analogy was if a rabbit can only be good. No, sorry. If a rabbit can only be good and it can't be evil, is it noble for it to be good? So as in if you have no other choice than to be a good person, is there nobility in that? Then if you can't do bad.
I don't know. I mean, I guess so. But then, how often do you see someone that only can create good? The majority of people, even if it's something so minor, have something that maybe isn't flawless. I mean, I guess so, but I still feel like it's near to impossible to not have any type of major or minor flaw in your whole being.
Yeah, I think the problem that arises with people who can only be good.
Yeah.
I think the problem that arises with that is that you can't feel the good, as in you can't feel feelings. So if say you were to donate to a homeless person, but you had no other choice but to donate to that homeless person,
Right.
you can't feel good about that.
Appreciate it.
You can't appreciate the feeling that you get for doing that good thing. So I think that's the main problem that arises from people who just have no choice.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I like that perspective on it, because if it's who you are 24/7, then you can't acknowledge and actually realize days that you might be doing like an excellent thing, rather than if you're, some days you have no energy, no
Go straight into your
effort to do anything for anyone else. Then on the days that you do, you can appreciate that, oh, today's a good day, rather than being like a 24/7. Like we said, it becomes normal, and it becomes, I guess, just something that you can't look up to yourself for. But yeah, I like that perspective. I haven't thought about it like that before.
Yeah, there's no left without right. Well, Ruby, thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Where can people go to see what you're doing?
So Instagram, my handle is Ruby Maecoyne, Maecoyne. And then on TikTok, RUB3. Hold on. RU3BE3. I just messed that up. But yeah, TikTok and Instagram. I would like to start YouTube. I think it's sick. But for now, just the two.
Good.
Thank you.
Brilliant.